Hi. I hope everyone had enough food and conversation over lunch to fuel you through what is going to be a jam-packed afternoon, starting with a topic that Stephen raised in his opening remarks, sustainability. We are, I think, happily past the stage of making bad jokes about green being the new black. But that means we're on to a much more complicated, albeit important phase of how do you incorporate these values systemically into a company. To start the discussion, I'm very happy to introduce Eric Liedtke, the CMO of Adidas, and Cyrill Gutsch, who started an organization called Parley for the Oceans, to talk about the subject.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Liedtke. I'm from Adidas, or for those Americans, Adidas. So that's the most bilingual I will be today. Cyrill and I are going to talk a little bit about a case study about how we can be sustainable and how sustainability is good business. So what I'd like to do is introduce a little bit about the Adidas way of setting up sustainability, and then have really Cyrill come up and talk about how the case study between Adidas and Parley has really paid huge dividends for both brands. So first of all, I'd like to thank Vanessa for the invitation to come here. This is not my forehand. I'm a sports guy. I'm from Adidas, so I have one suit, and I'm wearing it as we speak. And it was a challenge to get me on it, so thank you very much. We started talking to Vanessa about 6 months or so ago, and as I was talking to her about what we do in the sustainable space after we had some presentations in New York with Parley, she kind of thought it would be a good idea I'd come and kind of share some of the things we're doing, and maybe it will help you guys think about how you're doing things, because the one thing about sustainability is it's an open playing field and everyone's invited. This is not a unique selling proposition that Adidas wants to keep to itself. This is something we want to share and make sure that we can learn from you, and if we've got something you can learn from, then you can have the opportunity to ask questions and think about how you guys can take it into your own brands. First off, I guess we should all remember that people buy as much what you stand for as what you make. And so it's really important to have a core belief as a brand to really what you stand for, to rally not just yourselves around, but all of your activities as well. Our core belief is through sport, we have the power to change lives. And that's not a philanthropic belief. That's something we take very serious. So we challenge ourselves each and every day to say, how can we change lives? We heard a very candid conversation this morning from a panel hosted by Roger, talking about the state of the world. And it is a little depressing when you start getting into it. And you can lay over that Middle East crisis with many macroeconomic crises, with many human rights crises, with environmental rights crises. And what are we going to do about it? And I guess my ask of all you guys is start. We can all do something. There was a failure by the EU to act more on the refugee crisis coming into Europe. Let's not be failures against the environment, which is equally in every bit as crisis as the human right immigration issue is. So, have a core belief. Second of all, sustainability is good business. So let's take that one right off the books. If we look at sustainability, and you look at your consumers, and the consumers today, whether they be millennials, whether they be Z generation, whether they be your basic consumers, sustainable leaders are seen 4 times more likely to be innovative leaders. Each and every one of us want to be leaders in innovation, I believe. But sustainable leaders is the new place of innovation. It's the new place people need to be seen that they're making inroads in. It's all about what you do to be more sustainable with these consumers. The new generations, and we focus primarily on that 18 to 27-year-old, they're looking and they're hyper aware of the impact we have on the earth and what they can do about it. They also rank ethics and green behavior above even coolness. So we had a joke at lunch today is the ocean plastic shoe that Cyrill is going to talk about later, when we launched that, did that create as much hype for our brand as a Kanye West launch? And I would say not quite, but damn close. And nobody would have suggested that that was possible when we did it back in the time. It just goes to show you that sustainability is good business with your consumers. And don't forget the impact it has on your employees. The war for talent is over. and talent continues to win. So you are what your people are, and you are what you make. So your people are the key to doing everything you want, and you need to have the best talent to win in a hyper-competitive world. And they want to feel like they're making a difference. They want to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than just the bottom line. And that's where I would say that people come into play very radically in how we do that, and sustainability is a core driver of our employee engagement. So that's the first place. Sustainability is good business. Secondly, what do? You must be authentic. You must start with not being an eco-tourist or greenwashing or whatever term you want to use. You must do it in an authentic way, and you must mean it. Everyone will see right through somebody coming in and trying to tell a quick story and make a quick buck. So when we did it, we started with workers' rights. We had to get workers' rights right first. And I'm happy to say for 16 years, we've been ranked the leader in our industry when it comes down to our supply base and how workers are treated. We have a zero tolerance policy there. Well, I want to have a zero tolerance policy on environmental rights as well. But the idea is to give your employees then permission to be sustainable. And what we talk about there is we give them 3 specific targets that they can go down into. The first one is look at reducing our footprint. You make less, you do less harm to the environment. It's as simple as that. Reduce complexity of product, reduce redundancy of products, reduce how many products we make. Look at 3D design and visual graphics to try to replace your sample costs. Look at every way you can to make less stuff. That's reduce. The other one is replace. What can we do to replace polyester with recycled polyester, cotton with better organic cotton? Whatever the different ingredients are, replace it. Yes, it will cost a little bit more because they don't meet the virgin plastic or the virgin polyester cost, especially with oil prices down. But you'll reap it on the bottom line when you start talking about how your consumer will benefit that and carry the message for you. So that's replacement. And the third area we ask our employees to innovate against is innovation. Look at ways to do things differently, whether it be biofabrication, whether it be knitting uppers versus cutting and making things out of leather, or whether it be just different innovative techniques that are coming out from an onshore production standpoint. But look at ways to reduce your footprint from innovation, reduction, and replacement. And once we give them permission to do that, we can again provide leadership opportunities because we unleash the power of our employees. And that's been very compelling for me because for the last 16 years, we continue to be ranked on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index and by the Corporate Knights, one of the top brands. And I think we're 5th this year of sustainability. So we're making some inroads. We're doing some great things. However, we're not cutting through. And I'd make a wager that none of you in this audience know the great things we're doing in the environmental space until just recently. And the recent addition to our portfolio has been the partnership with Parley. Parley has been such a compelling partner for us because it allowed us to get focused. It allowed us to focus our issues around something that consumers really care about. They may not care about organic cotton, even though the world does. They may not care about recycled polyester versus virgin polyester, even though the world does. They damn well care about the oceans. And they care about saving baby seals. And they care about protecting baby whales. And everyone loves the animals that live in the ocean. And everyone loves the ocean. So when we started talking about getting with Parley, Parley allowed us to focus some of our efforts. And yes, our marketing story, our storytelling around the oceans. And really started to focus down not just the oceans, but plastic in the oceans. It's been an unbelievable accelerator to our story out there. And now I'd like to introduce Cyrill to come up and talk about what we did together and some of the big, great improvements we've had. So don't be afraid to talk about the UN and COP21. So thank you.
So it's difficult for me to speak at an event of somebody else. We're doing Parley Talks. That's how Parley started. And then there was so much talking. And I was like, fuck, we can't talk all the time. There is a problem out there. And I mean, we started Parley to face that problem. We will not solve that by talking. We have to collaborate. That's why I'm here to recruit you. The thing is, Paris last year had been a symbol, not only for the horror that we experienced. It had been a symbol of change, and also a change in the ocean community, because what happened to me in 2012 happened to the world in 2015. Everybody knows the oceans are dying. And we are dying with them. We are the next dinosaurs, and our business, our way of doing things kills us off. That's the truth. Sounds traumatic. I learned that in a little law firm, 2012, in Frankfurt, when I met Captain Paul Watson from Sea Shepherd. And what shocked me the most is I had no idea until that meeting how bad it is. 2048 is the ultimate deadline that was defined by Boris Worm and Ben Halpern, where all the life that you know from your refrigerator, from the supermarket, from the menu, from your lunch, will not anymore live in the sea. The sea will be dead. That's the truth. So Paris last year came to an agreement, and probably the horror, the bad, helped with that. They came to an agreement which was great, which says nothing, but end of the day, it's a direction. And what actually happened in 2015 as well is, it is now publicly known that we are in the 6th mass extinction event. It's proven. There's no debate about it anymore. So, change, crisis, problems. There's always an opportunity. I love problems. And that was pretty much why my career was based on. If there's a problem, there is business. There's opportunity. Structures fall apart. There's space for the new. And that's pretty much what we have proven when we started working with adidas. We have looked at a problem, ocean plastic pollution, which is one of the 3 big threats that we are facing at Parley. And Parley being more or less the little glue, that glue where you that you use to put together what is already out there. All these organizations, all these innovations, we have all of that already there. We know how to solve the problems. But we just have to put the right tiles together and have a little sketch in order to see how a solution can look. And Parley is that grout, that little gluey, sticky little thing between the bathroom tiles. And we started with one problem that we felt so good to demonstrate how powerful collaboration is and how good it is to rename sustainability into something else. Forget that lame homework part. Let's call it something that is more like gives hope or that shows a direction. Let's just call it eco-innovation. Let's invent our way out of this mess. And that's what we did. So we went out, and actually the story had been 2 times on the cover of New York Times.
Small plug.
Yeah. Advertising, you can deduct that from my time, please. I'm watching that thing that makes me stress out down there. 1 minute 23. Oof. That was a gill net before. A gill net is a very very mean and illegal fishing method. And overfishing being one of the big problems of our planet because we're killing everything off and we're so good at killing everything and eating it. So, lunch. The gill net sits on the bottom of a seabed, is 2 kilometers high and 72 kilometers long, at least the one that Sea Shepherd pulled out last year, with which they made it to the cover of New York Times. Once for hunting down as a non-government organization illegal poachers who go out and steal what is not theirs, these fish. And second, for slavery, because on these boats are these people that live there without passports often, no way to come to the shore. So Sea Shepherd hunted the Thunder for 110 days until the captain decided to sink his own ship. Just because he didn't want that the evidence goes in the wrong hands, but he didn't. He totally underestimated our partners at Sea Shepherd. They went onto the sinking ship and just filmed everything. And the guys went to prison, 50 million damage is pretty much what came out of it. But on their way, on their escape, they left a net behind. And Sea Shepherd pulled it out. We took it on and we turned it into a threat. You can call it life threat. Because this comes from a weapon that destroyed so many animals out there. And we use that threat. And just remember that threat. Remember this little threat. And then we go to another big jump. We go to another country, paradise. Everybody wakes up in the morning. Oh, the other way around. Nobody of you wakes up in the morning. I don't wake up in the morning to destroy the oceans. Nobody does that. But still we do. And the Maldives being a beautiful symbol for that. We all want to spend time in this blue, magic, deep sea around these beautiful islands. We want to do that. But there is not one island out there which is not totally covered with trash. It's panic in paradise. And what we do there is we collect all that stuff. We collect all that dirt. We collect all that plastic, and we give it a new life. And that's the second thread. So this comes from shorelines. And what we did together, following the idea of eco-innovation, we created a shoe. This is a new technology of Adidas. They were so generous to kind of unleash it on us. Or the other way around, we unleashed our dirt, our trash, our waste. And when you see this beautiful shoe that kind of starts existing, has like all these things that you need to become a star, and actually it is a star. The PR around that thing made 5.6 billion eyeballs.
So
Speaking about business.
Bigger than Kanye.
A bit bigger than Kanye West. Trash. Ocean plastic. So what we made actually happen was we turned a problem into an opportunity and created a system that can change full countries, that can avoid plastic, that can intercept plastic, that can redesign the plastic. Because the truth is, plastic is a design failure. And when you look at all these environmental problems, overfishing, acidification, pollution, there's always bad business behind it. Old business. Some kind of dinosaur, Stone Age business. And I think the truth is, we just have to reinvent ourselves. We have to create new business, a new business model, a new culture. And of course it's lucrative. The digital revolution was one of the biggest trends. The environmental movement is way bigger. And the environmental movement will end in the biggest trend ever seen because there's a big driver behind it, survival. We all want to survive. And even if we close our eyes, even if we don't want to see the horror, which is actually a beautiful mission for the beauty industry and the fashion industry and the design community, to tell the horror, to connect first, to create love for the sea, and then tell about the fragility. But even with all that in hand, it's still up to us. We have to make change happen pretty much right away. And we have to use this trend, this mega trend of environmental movement, to pretty much find and create new things. And to be the first ones doing so and owning that IP and bringing it out there and being truly a change maker. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Michael Kowalski, chairman of Tiffany, and Brunello Cucinelli, founder of Brunello Cucinelli, to the stage.
I'm told to stay. Really? Okay. I think you're getting a new seat.
Mr. Cucinelli is going to be speaking with a translator in Italian.
Perfetto,
You're supposed to go down there.
c'ho lei che parla.
I'll be speaking.
The team was very specific.
You done?
Okay, well, Michael, I'd like to start with you, actually, because I understand you just flew in from Washington, D.C. What were you doing there?
Yes, I spent a couple of hours with Sally Jewell, the Secretary of the Interior. The U.S. Interior Department, sponsored by the President, has convened a corporate-wide effort around illegal wildlife trafficking. There's a specific organization that's been put in place in the United States Wildlife Tracking Association, or Alliance, excuse me. And basically the objective is to bring together the corporate world, anyone in any way that touches wildlife, and try to raise public awareness of the horrors of wildlife trafficking. And I think that's really important because this issue of raising public awareness around sustainability issues, around responsibility issues, even at your own brand's risk, is something that's really critical and actually ultimately is the catalyst for action.
Okay, I mean, talking about sustainability is a complicated thing because, you know, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of very valuable and worthy things, but what it is not at all is sexy. Right? I mean, you don't really hear the word fibers and think like... So, Mr. Cucinelli, I want to talk to you or hear from you about what sustainability means to you and how important it is to talk about it.
Allora, intanto mi scuso, ma il mio inglese non mi consente di parlarvi con l'anima.
First of all, I apologize, but my English does not allow me to speak with my soul.
E io vorrei parlarvi con l'anima.
And I want to speak to you with my soul.
Io sono qui per portarvi una piccola testimonianza
I'm here to bring to you just a witnessing
dell'umana sensibilità, sostenibilità.
of human sustainability, human sensitivity.
30 secondi sulla mia vita perché possiate capire la cultura che ho avuto.
30 seconds on my lap so that you can grasp the culture, the heritage where I come
Quindi
from.
ho fatto i primi 15 anni di vita in campagna, facevamo i contadini,
First 15 years of my life in the countryside, we were farmers.
bellissima.
Beautiful life.
Le forme, i colori, gli odori della campagna.
The shapes, the colors, the smells of the
Non ho
countryside.
visto mai i miei genitori litigare,
I
i
never
miei
saw
zii litigare.
my parents, my uncles, my relatives quarrel. They would never fight.
Bellissima.
So a beautiful life.
Poi siamo andati, lavoravamo la campagna non con le macchine ma con gli
But we
animali.
were working the land and the earth, not with the machinery, but with the animals.
Poi siamo andati a vivere in città
Then we moved to the
e
city,
mio papà è andato a fare l'operaio
and my father was hired as a workman in a factory.
e tornava la sera, aveva gli occhi lucidi.
And he had tears in his eyes when he came back home in the
Diceva,
evening.
che cosa ho fatto io a Dio per essere umiliato?
And he said, what did I do wrong to God to be humiliated and subject to offense on a
Allora io,
daily
ragazzino,
basis? And I was very young, a
E mi son
teenager,
detto,
and I said to
non
myself,
so che cosa farò nella vita, ma l'obiettivo della mia vita è la dignità umana.
I don't know what will come out of me in my life, but my objective in my life, my goal is human dignity.
Questo era il sogno della mia vita.
And this was the dream of my life.
Quando mi sono messo poi a fare questo lavoro,
And then when I started business,
perché nel frattempo per 10 anni ho fatto la vita del caffè
well,
italiano.
mind you, for 10 years before that, I led my life in the Italian
Cioè,
cafe,
non
bar.
è che lavoravo nel bar,
But mind you, I was not working in the bar.
praticamente io non ho fatto niente.
I didn't do anything,
Erano
basically.
discussioni di teologia, di donne, di
We would
religione.
discuss religion, theology, everything women.
Però lì ho scoperto Kant,
But that's where I discovered the
che a un certo
philosopher
punto
Kant,
dice una cosa meravigliosa.
who stated something marvelous.
Agisci considerando l'umanità
You should act bearing in mind mankind,
sia per te stesso che per gli altri,
both for yourself and for others,
come nobile fine.
as a noble end.
Quindi Vanessa, concludo forte.
So Vanessa, I'll end now
Che
very, very
cosa
strong
volevo fare
manner.
io nel lavoro?
So what did I want to do in business?
Volevo lavorare in belli ambienti.
I wanted to work in beautiful
Volevo che le
places,
persone che voi sapete normalmente guadagnano $1.500
and
al
usually you
mese
see employees in this sector, they only earn $1,500 a month.
guadagnassero qualche cosa in più.
So I wanted them to make a bit more,
Perché io ho sempre pensato che ognuno di noi va al
because
lavoro
I've always thought that every single one of us, we go to work
con quel mal dell'anima che colpisce l'essere
and
umano.
we carry to work, we have with us this malaise that we
Io-
have in our
io
soul.
volevo far sì che si creasse un'atmosfera, ma mica so io, no?
No, it's not
Vabbè,
me ringing,
ce l'ho.
right? The phone. I don't have any
Ce l'ho, io
phone.
non ce l'ho.
No mobile
Che
phone
si
on me.
creasse quell'atmosfera di dignità morale ed economica dell'uomo.
So I wanted moral and economic dignity of man and
Perché
labor,
l'uomo ha bisogno di dignità prima forse del pane.
because human beings need dignity even before they need
Quindi
bread.
io mi sono ispirato agli occhi di mio padre.
So I drew inspiration from the teary eyes of my
Quindi
father.
viviamo in questo paesino,
So we live in this
siamo
hamlet,
1500 persone che lavorano,
1,500 employees,
spero che un giorno verrete.
and hopefully you will all come and visit one day.
Sentendomi custode,
And I want to feel
abbiamo
like
cercato
an
di
owner,
progettare a 3 anni,
sorry, like a
a
custodian.
300 anni.
And that's why we tried
3000 anni.
to plan ahead 3 years, 30 years,
Come ha fatto
300 years.
Lenotre e Luigi XIV qui, no?
Like the architect Lenotre and
Ecco,
Louis
quindi
XIV did
questo è un
here.
po' lo spirito,
So this is the spirit.
lavorare per la dignità
We
Vanessa,
want
dell'essere
to
umano.
work to foster
Non
human
so se
dignity,
ci
Vanessa.
riusciamo,
I don't know if we manage, if we achieve
ma
that,
vorremmo lavorare senza recar danni
but we
all'uomo,
want to try and work without harming
o
mankind,
forse meno possibile.
or at least as little as possible.
Intanto
Okay.
grazie.
Thank you.
So on stage we have human sustainability, wildlife sustainability, ocean sustainability. It's pretty varied. So you could sort of forgive a consumer for being confused about what exactly this means to the fashion industry or the luxury industry and how deep it goes. How do you each think about making sense of what sustainability means and your role in it? And how do we as an industry communicate that to our consumers? Eric, do you want to start?
Sure. It's a good question. It's a complicated topic, and I think you have to narrow the focus, and you have to do it not just for your consumers, but for your employees, because just everybody wanted to do something, and before we gave it some structure around reduction, replacement, and innovation, we had ideas coming up all over the place, and it wasn't sustainable in a different sense. It wasn't something we could scale and take across the organization and really get behind. So as we started to give them focus areas, hey, reduce, that's easy. We can give you goals. We can give in our company, we can say we want to reduce our range footprint. And obviously I'm dealing with a much bigger footprint with 20 billion euro brands than some of the luxury brands here, but there's a lot of redundancies, there's a lot of overlap, and there's things that can be absolutely reduced, and there's technologies that can allow us to reduce things within our samples or what may. So that's something we can clearly focus on and, dare I say, give ourselves targets on. Same with innovations. We can focus our futures teams and the guys that are thinking about what's next in the industry. And again, biofabrication is a buzzword, but it's coming. The next 5 years, we might be able to grow in test tubes, leathers and stuff, but that's an innovation area that we no longer have to raise and then slaughter animals to get their skins and hides. We can grow those because of DNA mapping. And then you go to the third one, which is really replacement, which is looking at things that aren't, again, new. Cyrill used the analogy, which I liked today at lunch, is like, if we keep creating new plastics or new oil-based materials, it's like trying to dry off with the shower when you're in the shower. So you're just continuing to dump more stuff onto the problem. You've got to start using the stuff that already exists, and that's why this push for organic or recycled is another area. So you've got to focus your employees, and then you've got to focus your stories, and that's where we use really Parley as an entry point to tell our authenticity across that. So, but it's complex, and no one can go wrong if they're doing something, but my advice is focus.
Michael?
I think we took a rather focused approach. We said to ourselves, look, there's a lot of environmental and social issues we could be concerned about, but at the end of the day, where Tiffany Company itself and the jewelry industry more broadly has the overwhelming impact is around the mining sector. Now, the mining sector is not an easy sector to engage consumers. It gets pretty wonky pretty quickly, and it's pretty boring. And tailings piles and et cetera. Acid mine drainage, all really bad stuff. So we took the approach, though, of being very honest with consumers, with our customers, saying bad things happen in mines. It's a dirty, ugly business. And basically, as part of the Tiffany brand promise, you don't need to worry about that. I think it's true probably every luxury brand in this room has a reasonable brand premium associated with all the dimensions of the brand. We took a step back and said, we're not going to market sustainability. We're going to assume, or responsibility, we're going to assume that when the customer steps in the Tiffany store, they expect, as part of the brand promise, that we've taken care of all the nastiness around the supply chain, recognizing that they'll be hell to pay if we don't, and just left it at that. And so we engage the consumer selectively, but recognize that this is such a complex problem that we really can't get into the weeds with them.
So does it work to really have the information available to people but not force it down their throats? I mean, do they then actually understand that you're doing anything?
Well, and I think that leads to a second important point. We spend a lot of time engaging with the NGO community, because at the end of the day, it's the NGO community that's going to dig down into your sustainability report, that will ask the wonky questions, that will ask about cyanide parts per billion in this gold mine. And so we've tried to present layers of information. So if you really want to dig deep, you can go into our 50, 60-page sustainability report and learn more than you ever wanted to know about mining. But on the other hand, if you want a more encapsulated view, that's available too. So we tried to tier the information flow.
It's critical to have the NGOs on your side.
The scary NGOs.
Oh, the NGOs have to authenticate. They're the ones that can identify the greenwashers from the tourists. I mean, they're the ones that are going to say they're legitimate, and they'll give you a rating on that, because you don't want to talk about that. Fully concur. It gets wonky, but I think within the social mechanisms we have with the age of user-generated content, you don't have to do a lot to market it either. You just have to do a little bit, and it takes off. And
NGOs can be your friend. There's the fear of NGOs, at least in the jewelry industry, was one of the most peculiar things I ever personally experienced, because most every interaction we ever had with an NGO, if you come with transparency and openness and genuine intentions, seems to have worked out fine for us.
Okay, Brunello, do you have fear of NGOs?
Assolutamente no.
Absolutely
Allora,
not.
io penso questo. Mio babbo non conosceva
So
niente.
this is what I think. My father didn't know anything.
Noi siamo connessi.
Whereas we're all
Conosciamo
online,
tutto, quindi
we
c'è
know
una sorta di
everything.
moralizzazione
And
dell'umanità.
as a consequence, mankind
Quindi
becomes
tu
more
devi essere
moralized. There's an
vero sempre.
ethicalization. You must be authentic all the time.
Io credo che noi stiamo vivendo un secolo speciale,
I think we are experiencing a special century
dove l'anima si deve fondere alla mente.
where there must be a blending between the soul and the
Quindi abbiamo
mind.
Rousseau e Voltaire che si devono
So
fondere.
we have Rousseau and Voltaire who
Devi
need to
essere
come
vero
together
sempre,
and
quando hai
blend.
paura, quando sei
You
gioioso,
must
quando le
always
cose vanno meno
show
bene.
your feelings when you're fearful, when you're happy, when things are good or bad.
Ogni cosa che è giusta e vera è anche
Everything
utile.
that is right and true, it is also useful.
Quindi viviamo in un secolo che io considero d'oro.
So we live in a century that I call a golden
E
century.
io penso che questo sia il nuovo secolo del rinascimento
And I think
dell'umanità.
this will be the new century of the
Io
Renaissance for
credo che noi stiamo
mankind.
vivendo un momento di grande rinascita
I
di grandi
think
ideali.
there is a lot of revival of great ideas now, ideals,
I grandi ideali che hanno fatto l'uomo.
that those that have
La bella
really
politica,
founded
la
men,
famiglia, la spiritualità, o
politics,
religione.
family or religion or spirituality.
Questi ideali forse per un po' di tempo si sono assopiti.
Maybe these ideals were put to
E
sleep for a
adesso la
while,
rinascita, il
but
risveglio,
now they are reawakening,
specialmente nei giovani.
especially in young people.
Abbiate fiducia che questo è un secolo d'oro, ve
You
lo posso
should
garantire
really
io.
believe and trust that this
Che-
is a golden century. I
onestamente-
vouch for it.
Che vivo da custode.
And because I live
Perché
as
se tu
like a
vivi da
custodian,
custode è meno forte che da proprietario.
because if you live like an owner, you do not understand
Il
this. You
proprietario
must
ha paura di
act as a
perdere.
custodian. If you are an owner, you're
Il
loose
custode no.
to lose things.
Quindi
Custodians,
vogliamo essere
they're not
dei
scared.
bravi custodi
So we have to
di una
be
piccolissima
good
parte dell'umanità.
custodians of a very
Per un
tiny part
piccolissimo parte
of
del
mankind
mondo.
for a short time part of
Poi, come
time.
dice Voltaire,
And then, as Voltaire put it,
se non accettiamo i cambiamenti,
unless you embrace
forse
change,
prendiamo la parte peggiore.
maybe you are left with the worst of it, of your time.
Io la parte peggiore non la voglio
And I
prendere.
don't want to be left with the worst of it.
Voglio vivere sereno.
I want to live in a serene manner.
But you weren't expecting a philosophy seminar, were you? I want to talk for a minute about another dirty subject besides mines, which is money. You guys all run public companies, work for public companies. You know, sustainability is expensive. Eric, you touched on it in your opening talk. How do you justify to a board, to your shareholders, spending more money on, you know, something that may not overtly pay off, you know, in the next quarter?
You've got to look at the whole picture, and there's many line items to a P&L. And so, yes, on the cost of goods, your profit will go down if you want to be truly sustainable. So for me to procure recycled polyester versus polyester with the oil prices today, I'm paying a 25% premium. That's not easy to sell all the time to a CFO. But ultimately, you've got to make the case of, I give you some sound bites on the consumer desire as well. If you're winning consumers, I make the argument that I win that back on the marketing working budget line. So if I have to spend less money to advertise my goodwill, and I can go out, as Cyrill said, and get 5 billion views from making a product that's made out of sustainable ocean plastic recovery, then I'm getting some momentum. And it's funny to say, with my board colleagues, the CFO is the biggest advocate of sustainability we have. And he believes there's a larger measurement than just financials. So the financial is one component, and I would make the argument you could play with the cost of goods and MWB. And then the other one is your net promoter score. And we should all be measuring the brand as advocacies and how you're getting advocates for your brand. And your net promoter score is definitely growing since we started our efforts a year and a half ago. Now, it's not just because of that. There might be a little Kanye, there might be a little football, little Juventus in there. But there's a different area. They all play a role. So you have to be compelling and passionate about your argument. But sustainability is not even questionable as its meaningfulness to the consumer.
By the way, did you tell Kanye that the ocean plastic shoe sold more than his shoe?
No, because it hasn't sold more, but it got more likes. And hopefully Kanye's not going to be seeing this because there's going to be hell to pay.
The wrath of Kanye.
I don't want Kanye calling me tonight, please. Let's keep it amongst ourselves.
Michael, how do you deal with the issue of cost?
You know, I guess it's easy for me to say this now that I've been retired a year, but I can say honestly, we never even thought about it. Our going in perspective was this is a moral imperative. It's part of the brand promise. It's intrinsic to who we are and how we act. And it's something that our customers in our opinion, not necessarily through research, through some research, but through a lot of instinct, is something that our customers demand of us. And so we never stop to look at the cost. And quite frankly, I agree completely. Whatever modest incremental cost there may be in cost of goods or other operating, I think you get it back easily on the top line. And I never once had to sell sustainability to our board, and never had to sell it to the investment community. The investor community loves what we do around responsibility and sustainability. So, it hasn't been a big struggle.
Brunello, I understand that you just instituted, in fact, on top of whatever you're doing now, a new grant for employees to do with culture. Can you talk about that and why it makes business sense?
Perché io penso che noi, di fondo viviamo in un rumore
You see,
informatico,
we
no?
have some sort of IT noise in the background. That's where we live.
Curarlo con la
And
cultura.
I think that we can treat this
Non c'è
background
dubbio
noise through
che la
culture.
cultura è il sale della
There's
civiltà.
no doubt that culture is the salt of
Quindi
civilization.
Ho cercato di coinvolgere i
So
giovani
I try to involve
in
young
qualcosa
people in something
che possa far fiorire la cultura.
that can make culture bloom and
La
blossom.
cultura è la base della civiltà.
Culture is the foundation of
Per
civilization.
rispondere sulla quotazione, noi siamo
And
4
to
anni che
answer
siamo
on
quotati
the
in borsa.
listing, we have been a listed company for 4
Io
years.
sono contentissimo.
I'm very
Vi dico
joyful,
la verità.
happy about
Vi dico la verità.
that. Tell you the truth.
Perché ho detto ai miei stimati
Because
investitori,
I said to my esteemed
se credete in
investors,
un'impresa
if
che
you
cerca
believe in a
la sana
company
crescita
that wants to pursue healthy
il giusto
growth,
profitto,
fair profit,
nel rispetto della dignità umana,
whilst respecting human dignity in the process,
investite.
you should invest in us.
altrimenti non lo fate.
Otherwise, do not do
Perché
that.
questo è l'obiettivo. Io
Because
vorrei che
this
questa
is
impresa
the goal.
vivesse
I
per i prossimi
want
100,
my
200, 300
company
anni.
to survive for the next 100, 200, 300 years.
Quindi questo è l'obiettivo.
So
Ma io
this is
trovo
the
che in
goal.
questo momento
But
la
I find
finanza
that at this moment in
stia
time,
tornando ad avere un bellissimo rapporto con
finance is
l'industria,
going back to engaging in a beautiful relationship with the industry,
nel grande rispetto dei ruoli.
mutually respecting each
Questo fa
other.
la differenza.
This is what makes the
Questo è un
difference.
cambio epocale.
And this is really
Io
a
non comprerei
breakthrough.
niente
I
se
would
sapessi
never
che è stato prodotto
purchase any product
recando danni a
if I
qualcuno
knew
o a
that in the
qualcosa.
manufacturing process something or somebody was
Questo un po'
harmed.
potrebbe essere la
And
chiave del futuro.
This could be the key for the
Però
future.
io vengo da un'esperienza
But
di massima povertà
I see I come from extreme
e
poverty
questo
in my
chiaramente ha
background,
influenzato molto la mia vita.
and this definitely affected
Quindi
my
voglio vivere
life.
così
I want to keep
e
living
poi se
like
dopo
this.
la morte c'è qualcosa
And
di
if there is
differenza,
something different then after
venga.
life, if there's an afterlife, some
come
benefit,
dice Socrate,
well,
se poi non c'è
then
niente,
if there is nothing in the
forse ho
afterlife,
vissuto meglio.
maybe I might have lived better anyway.
sono molto contento che mi avete invitato.
I'm very happy and
Ma
glad of
siccome
this
non ho studiato
invitation.
niente,
But since I never
capisco
studied
inglese, ma non
anything,
posso parlare
I can understand English,
con
but I
quella
can't
terminologia che vorrei
speak,
conoscere.
the way I would like to speak to
Ma lo
you.
fa lei, io non ho
I'll
studiato
do
niente,
it.
quindi mi sono
So I did not
divertito da
study
morire al
anything.
bar.
I had so much fun at the cafe. So I
Facendo
didn't
solo
have time to
scherzi.
study. Only playing pranks and jokes.
Now, I understand Brunello. This is a romance.
Ma anche il bar
He's
è
not
una
done.
grande università della vita.
Because
Anche il bar è una
the
grande
bar, the
università
cafe is
della
a
vita.
great university of life.
Molto importante.
You learn a lot
Perché
there.
al bar tu hai sempre
Because
qualcuno che
there,
ascolta le tue
among
pene.
your patrons, you always have somebody listening to your sorrows.
Quindi io vi vorrei dire solo una cosa bellissima.
So one beautiful thing I want to say to you.
Che a me piacerebbe che l'anima fosse
I would really like
la fonte dei nostri grandi
our
pensieri.
soul to be the source of our great thoughts.
Perché cambiamo l'umanità.
Because we can change mankind through that.
Okay.
I don't know, I feel like such a bummer. I keep trying to bring things back down to earth. Is there a way to actually measure, though, the effect of, whatever initiatives you each are doing in these areas? Can you put a number on it? Can you quantify the impact of your actions?
Io vorrei rispondere in questo.
I can answer as follows.
Da noi siamo 1500, non si firma il
You
cartellino
see,
al
there is
mattino.
1,500 employees in the
non si-
company. No
non
one
si può
clocks
lavorare dopo
in
le
the morning,
17:30
and it is forbidden to work after
non si può essere
5:30
connessi.
p.m. and you can't be online after
Io non
that
voglio rubare l'anima a
because
nessuno.
I don't want to steal anybody's soul.
Però abbiamo l'assenteismo che è
However,
1,1%.
the rate of voluntary absenteeism is 1.1%,
molto inferiore
which
allo
is
standard.
much lower than the average,
Vuol dire che l'essere umano ha
which
bisogno di
means
dignità.
that the human being needs dignity. They respond to dignity.
Everyone wants to work for him now, don't you?
Dovete lavorare tutti per lui adesso, immagino.
5 p.m.
Exactly.
5:30. Okay, sorry. Okay, Michael.
No, we've never been able to quantify in a sense of return on investment that I could present to any of the financial people in the audience. But what we do know in consumer research, we get very positive scores. And what we also know, which I think others have touched on this morning, when we do our employee survey, the thing that our employees are most proud of being part of Tiffany is our work around responsibility. And I don't know how you put a measure, how you put a value on that, but we think it's pretty important, and we've hung a lot on that.
And I would start there as well. I think employee engagement, employee satisfaction, being a part of something bigger than just the bottom line is so critical. We deal with a lot of next-gen employees, as everyone here does, and they are demanding to mean more than just the financial. You need the financial, but you need a meaningful purpose in your work. So I would say that's a key driver, and that drives everything else then. If you've got a motivated, engaged employee base with a moral imperative, then they will run through walls for you. And then, yeah, okay, maybe it's a little later than 5:30 some evenings, but they're doing it their own passion. And they're not doing it because they're being pushed into it. They're not doing it because they have to. They're not doing it because they're being fenced in. They're doing it because they actually want to make a difference. So when we unleash them against a sustainability effort, whether it be against Parley or something else, they go crazy because they want to do that. They do their own workshops. They do their own thing. And then I would only say from a consumer standpoint, we can measure likes and shares and different things on social media more than ever before. You can measure Net Promoter Score, and you can see a direct relevance to when you start these initiatives and what happens therefore. I mean, Net Promoter Score in the U.S. has always been terrible for us. Before the UN event where we unleashed the shoe, or the finished shoe that we had, was like a -3 for the brand. Now it's at a 10. Hey, that's not anywhere close to our competitors, but we're in the positive, and I'm happy about that. Is it only because of that? No, but it's a lot because of that, and we give it credit as much as anything else.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple questions from the floor. Carlo, do you want to start?
Hi, morning. I'm Carlo Capasa, president of Camera della Moda Italian. Well, I think that what we need when we talk about sustainability is the help of the association. Like for example, our association, we are doing a big job about that. Because we have to define at the end what to do, and we have to measure what we do. And this is exactly what you ask everybody. Where we measure, how can we judge if you're doing properly what you're doing? Yep. There are some levels where we can say, okay, you're doing everything right, or something you say you do, you don't do. Yep. In Camera della Moda, we act like that. We made a table with the most famous brand that work about sustainability, like Brunello, like Prada, Gutsch, Armani, Versace, Ferragamo, Renzo Rosso. Everybody's on many brands. And we said, let's start to make a program. Is a 5 years program where we started to give guidelines. So for example, for the chemical, we said this is the maximum, and this is something that evolves all the time, of course, the maximum you can use for those substances that are toxicological, they're dangerous, they're dangerous. And we said this is the maximum you can use to make a product, but still to save much below the law, because the law is very, very high, whatever. Involving the leather goods, because leather is always forgotten when we talk about sustainability. Then we made this story, and we published a document with the numbers. And then we are going to do the same for the social, for the origin of the clothing or accessories, and for the restoring of the buildings, stores, and this and this. So it's 5 points programs, 5 years. Don't you think that we should do something like that, or like have something we can measure? All the companies, like every organization, making something like that.
Well, so here's one of the problems I've found, because I keep asking people that question, is that no one organization is willing to step forward and take responsibility for producing the numbers that will then equate to, what is a sustainable company. I mean, do any of you think that there is an organization that should take that responsibility?
Well, I mean, it exists. The Forest Stewardship Council and the Marine Stewardship Council, independent third-party certification systems, set rigid standards. And the only point that I would make, and we're wrestling with it in the jewelry industry right now, it is essential to get the NGO community, government, and civil society involved in setting those standards. Because if industry does it themselves, I don't care. Because it's self-serving, arguably, and I think drifts towards least common denominator. So when you think of the marks that have consumer credibility, it's a very limited number, and it's all because civil society, community, to some degree government, have signed on and part of the governance structure. So I think that's it's really topical for us because we're wrestling with that right now in the jewelry industry.
Any other questions?
Eccole,
I know Brunello Cucinelli, and I know the town or the little city of which it is in, and many people don't know what he has done to give a sustainability to that area and what he has created. And if more people looked at the same idea, we'd find more sustainability around the world. And if Mr. Cucinelli can comment on what he has done to Solomeo, that would help.
È uno sponsor.
He's a sponsor.
No, io invece se posso rispondere,
If I can answer to that,
che è un
I
compito di
would
ognuno di
like to
noi.
say it is a
Se è
duty
vero che
for
siamo in
each and every one
rinascita,
of us.
ognuno di
If it
noi
is true that
domani
we
può
are
far
living
qualche
through a
cosa
renaissance,
in più per
somebody
l'umanità.
can
Basta
do
fare
a
il
little
3% in
bit
più.
more for mankind, just 3%
E
more,
avremo un secolo meraviglioso.
and then we will really enjoy a wonderful century.
Mia moglie non la pensa così perché è
My
sempre un
wife
po'
does
negativa.
not agree. She's
Vedi?
always a bit
Mi
of a
dice, non ci
pessimist.
credo.
So Duma, she says, I don't
Infatti
believe in
stamattina,
that. So much so
con qualche
that
intervento molto
this
diciamo
morning,
pessimista,
she
lei
was
mi diceva,
listening
visto che ho
to
ragione io.
somebody
No,
speaking in a pessimistic way. She said, you see, I'm right. And I said, no, you're not right.
Pensate solo mio nonno, mio babbo,
My
ha fatto
grandfather,
la guerra, la
my
dittatura,
father, they went
la
through
fame.
dictatorship, starving and
Come
war.
possiamo pensare che
How can
l'umanità
we
non va verso un
think that it is
progetto
not better now,
positivo?
that mankind is not going towards a rosier future?
Okay, one final question, and
Eccola.
then we can ask the rest at the break.
Ci abbiamo anche Mary Gay, eccola
Hello.
lì.
We have Mary Gay there too.
Hello, my name is Maria Eugenia Giron, and I am involved in this industry in very many ways, but I'm also a board member of Oceana, and I want to thank you very much for all of your contribution, Michael, for all of the contribution of Tiffany to this organization. But besides that, my question is linked to the future and who is going to make the real change. We all agree that the new meaning of better product has to do with sustainability and responsibility. This is how clients are reading luxury today. But who is going to take the leadership? Is it going to be what we can call the established brands, or is it going to be entrepreneurs? There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there starting amazing projects in this area. What do you think?
Eric?
To me, I believe the future is about purpose, and I think you've got to stand for something, and consumers will buy from you more about what you stand for than what you make. So the race is on, and I would only say that we're all need to get started, whether it's with a governmental body, whether it's public, but I believe the private sector has the solutions. So whether it's entrepreneurs or whether it's established brands, we all need to get moving in one direction or another and stop waiting, because right now the waiting game is on. The waiting game on the bottom line. Can you convince the CFO? The waiting game of, will the consumers pay a little bit more? The waiting game of, can we, how much is enough human rights benefits? Stop waiting. Start doing things and do it your own way, and it will add up. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, so I'd like to thank the panel very much for their participation. And welcome my colleague Charles Duhigg back to the stage.
Grazie, grazie.